Thank you, Chairman, Ranking Member Brady, members of the committee. My two distinguished panelists have already addressed the bilateral economic relationship. I'm going to focus on the way in which the U.S. and the EU can work together to promote global economic growth and specifically to address the issue of the Doha development agenda. The U.S. and the EU have been critical in creating the WTO and, in fact, the international institutions and rules that govern international economic relations. But even though we're so close in that respect, we're closer also in the way in which Stu and Catherine have just talked about. The amount of investment between us, I think, has made it appear that U.S. firms are no longer American, or we're no longer American and European firms. Many of our firms are transatlantic firms. This means that we often have very, very common views and perspectives. This has definitely been proven to be the case in terms of Doha. The Chamber just led a delegation of senior U.S. company officials to Brussels and to Geneva to talk about the Doha development round and ways to invigorate it. In our meetings with our counterpart businesses and institutions in Brussels, one thing we found, and found in spades, is that we have exactly the same views. In terms of what we expect of our governments, and specifically our desire to have our governments, our negotiators working together actively to try to get more ambitious results, particularly from the key emerging economies. As a result of those conversations that took place earlier this month, we, the Chamber, and a number of our Business Europe, our key collaborator in the European side, and a number of other federations wrote a letter to Ambassador Kirk and to the EU Trade Commissioner, Karel de Gucht, where we said in a way that was incredibly strong from my point of view what we wanted. And I'd like to read a little bit from that letter because I think it again is very stark. Quoting now, while the proposals on the table provide a foundation for moving forward, they fail in their current form and substance to significantly support economic growth and development. On industrial goods, it is essential for the large emerging countries to participate in negotiating on key industrial sectors. We expect you to engage these countries in those negotiations. Progress on eliminating non-tariff barriers is lacking, and those negotiations need to be given a new priority. On services, what is on the table falls far short of providing the substantial and meaningful improvements in market access, especially from the large emerging countries. Given this near identity of interest, U.S. and EU companies find it difficult to understand why our negotiators do not collaborate more actively and more openly with one another to seek market access. As we note in our letter, and as Stu mentioned, we are now in the round's 9th year and do not want to rely on the promise of a hypothetical follow-on round to achieve the impetus to growth that the world economy needs. We have stated that we are committed to working with our negotiators to achieve results. We understand that our governments have been engaged in dealing with a severe recession and political transitions, both here in the United States and in Brussels. But these reasons for non-action that may have been applicable before are no longer valid as excuses, and we will not accept them. We know that coaxing liberalization from other countries is going to be difficult, not least because many developing countries are very concerned about opening their market to China. But one thing we are certain of is unless the U.S. and EU are working together on this, we will not be able to succeed. For Washington, this means extensive consultation with Brussels about the bilateral discussions we've been having with key emerging economies. We need to share with our European counterparts what we've asked for and what we think we can get. Brussels needs to give us back the same intelligence. For Brussels, The EU Commission needs to affirmatively engage with us and press these other economies for more. It's shied away from doing so, as Congressman Brady said, in part because of a mistaken belief that it will have to give more, especially on agriculture. We do not share that fear. Both Europe and the United States have given and have offered significant steps on agriculture. We have had little response. Brussels, like Washington, has every right to ask for more. With that commitment from Brussels, a political commitment to work with us, we together can devise an effective diplomatic strategy to get the opening U.S. and European workers, farmers, and companies desired. Mr. Chairman, even as we strive with Europe to bring success to the talks in Geneva, we must, as the other panelists have noted, work to strengthen the transatlantic economic relationship. As I mentioned in my written submission, our chance of doubling exports in the next 5 years will be virtually impossible to achieve if we settle for merely business as usual with our largest market. In my testimony, I mentioned many of the areas where the Chamber believes we can bring step change to the U.S.-EU economic relationship, and I hope that we will have an opportunity to address some of those issues during the questions and answers. Thank you very much.